All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our info session for nonprofit and voluntary sector management certificate for the spring-summer 2026 term. My name is Mashur Chaudhry, and I am the manager of recruitment and sales for the Chang School. Now, before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge the land on which Toronto Metropolitan University is built upon. Toronto is in the Dish with One Spoon territory. The Dish with One Spoon is a treaty between the Anishinaabe, Mississaugas, and Haudenosaunee that bound them to share the territory and protect the land. I thank the Indigenous peoples of Turtle Island for their efforts to protect the land, and I deeply regret the past injustices they have endured. As Toronto Metropolitan University seeks to move forward in partnership with Indigenous peoples, I pledge to foster an environment that is more inclusive and welcoming of Indigenous peoples from all communities. Now, I'd like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's session. Your microphone is muted throughout the event so as not to disturb other attendees or presenters. For the hearing impaired, we have automated captioning available, which you can access by activating it in the toolbar at the bottom of your screen. You can submit your questions for our speakers at any time by typing them into the question box in your control panel. We'll collect them throughout the session and address them during the Q&A portion after the presentation. Now I'd like to introduce our guest speakers for today. First, we have Brooke Adams, Program Specialist at the Chang School, Junie Facey, Academic Coordinator for the certificate at the Chang School, and Ben Liatsky, one of the course instructors for the certificate at the Chang School. Now, before we dive into the presentation, I want to do a quick temperature check of the room, and I'm going to share my screen to do a quick Mentimeter poll. So if you can pull out your browsers on your phones or on your computer and head to menti.com, and you will see the code on the screen. Just enter that code. It's 19670272. It'll only take a few seconds. And yeah, it's a pretty cool tool to do polls and provide some feedback to our team and our speakers today. So once you go in, you will see the question, what motivated you most to consider this certificate? And there are your options: career advancement, career change, skill building for current role, and personal interest, followed by other. So it looks like we've got one vote for career advancement, oh, two for career advancement, two for skill building for current role, and two for personal interest. Skill building for current role has just taken the lead. Okay, perfect. We'll leave that on for just a couple of more seconds, and then we have one more quick poll to do. But thank you so much for joining and participating. All right, this is the next one. So same thing, menti.com, and 19670272 is the code. And the question is, what is your current level of knowledge in this field? The first one is, hi, I am well informed about the field. Second option is moderate, basic awareness. And then last is minimal or no prior knowledge. So it's good to see that we have a group of people that have high and moderate, so basic awareness and is well informed about the field. So it'll be a really good discussion. So we'll leave that on for just a couple of more seconds, and then we will switch back to our presentation. But this is really good. It helps inform our speakers and panelists today as well when they're presenting and doing the Q&As later. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll here. Oh, okay. Lastly, we had one person who has minimal or no prior knowledge, which is totally fine for this certificate. Okay, so I'll stop sharing. Randall, back to you. Awesome. So now I will invite Brooke Adams, Program Specialist, Junie Facey, Academic Coordinator, and Ben Liatsky, Course Instructor. Ben is also a Program Manager at the Counseling Foundation of Canada and also a Research Consultant at Taylor Newbury Consulting with over 17 years of experience in the nonprofit sector. So we have an amazing panel that'll speak about this certificate. Welcome you all.
Thanks so much, Mashur. Can we go to the next slide? Amazing. So it looks like most of you were familiar with the field, so none of this will be a surprise to you. But just to go over kind of what our certificate is about and the field that it's in, we wanted to go over the nonprofit industry and some of the trends that we're seeing that we address in our certificate. So this was a surprise to me actually when I first learned this, but it's actually the largest employment sector in Canada. It's absolutely huge. Almost 200,000 organizations, 2.5 million employees, and 13 million volunteers make up this sector, which is incredibly large. And a lot of people, when we think of nonprofits, we think of charities. But it's actually any organization that has a purpose other than generating profit. So it really touches on every type of subsector out there. And some of the biggest subsectors are health, education and research, social services, religious organizations, as well as culture and recreation. So really something for everybody's passion within this sector. And in Canada, there's three types of nonprofits. So first is community. So this is probably what we're all more familiar with. It's service-based organizations, so things like United Way, food banks, advocacy groups. But there's also government nonprofits, which includes universities, where we're at right now, hospitals and colleges, as well as businesses. So things like chambers of commerce, business improvement areas, as well as things like condo associations. So we can see it's a very wide industry. Um, and it's very adaptable to the different changing environments. It's a really unique industry in that way, where they're often filling the gaps between where government and private sectors falls short. It's kind of referred to as the third sector between government and business. And nonprofits can be really agile in addressing some of the challenges that we see out in society. So they are leading these efforts a lot of times in terms of advocacy as well as legislative changes. And Canadian nonprofits operate both locally and globally. And they also range greatly in sizes. So from volunteer grassroots organizations all the way to very large national and international organizations like the Red Cross. And they can also focus on really specific community-based issues to larger things like tackling global issues such as climate change as well as human rights. So as part of the Chang School, we regularly review our programs and courses to ensure that our curriculum is aligned with the needs of the industry, so our learners are really equipped with the skills necessary to succeed in their careers. So as part of that process, we're making some really exciting changes to the nonprofit and voluntary management certificate. And through this process, we consulted with a bunch of industry experts, which informed some of the changes that we're making. And though some of those experts included the CEO of the Canadian Cancer Society, the director of donor experience at Women's Hospital Foundation, social innovation consultants, and as well as our amazing academic coordinator, Junie, who you'll hear from a bit later. And all of the changes that we've made focus on the in-demand skills and topics in the industry. So things like fundraising, EDIA initiatives, as well as digital transformation. And these are going to be built throughout all of our courses wherever relevant. And our certificate is designed to really build your critical thinking skills through experiential and work-based learning opportunities like case studies, project-based assignments, as well as peer discussions. We've also, based on how we've reimagined the curriculum, we're streamlined the certificate to reduce the total number of courses required to graduate. So on the website now, it currently says 8, and it's being reduced to 6, just to streamline your time to completion and get you into the industry a bit faster. Right. So an overview of our program, the delivery is primarily online. Like I mentioned before, it's 6 courses total to graduate, and there will be 4 required and 2 electives. The approximate time to completion is 1.5 years to a maximum of 5 years, and the total cost ranges between 3,500 to 3,600, and that's for the entire certificate. So the structure of our program, our required courses are designed to provide you an overview of the industry and develop those foundational knowledge and skills. So it covers things like effective nonprofits, understanding the sector, financial management, and program evaluation, which you'll hear a bit more about from Ben in a little bit. And our elective courses are specialized skills that best match your interest and your career goals. And you have a choice of 8 electives, but they cover topics like strategic planning, marketing, fundraising, leadership, diversity, and some critical issues in the sector. And now I will pass it over to our wonderful academic coordinator, Junie.
Thank you so much, Brooke. So I get to share a little bit more about the program, and I wanted to flag that this program has been around since 1998. So we are also the first nonprofit and voluntary sector management interdisciplinary certificate program in Canada. And not only are we still around, we are continuing to develop, as Brooke has shared. And that has been a main, I would say, a main quality of our program is our ongoing development and redevelopment and making sure that we are hearing from our students and industry partners on what is needed for the skills in the nonprofit sector. So who is this program for? It is for professionals already in the sector and people who want to make an impact. People like emerging leaders, emerging founders, people transitioning in their careers, individuals who are in undergraduate programs, and people from private and the public sector, as well as our main target, individuals who want to learn about the nonprofit sector and how to effectively lead in it. Next slide, please. By completing the certificate, you will master organizational practices and sector dynamics. You will develop skills in financial management, evaluation, strategic planning, and marketing, and more. You will enhance your leadership, advocacy, and government relations expertise. You will promote effective governance strategies, equity, diversity, and inclusion. You'll gain insight on Canada's international NGOs, and you'll understand and critically reflect on key issues and opportunities. Next slide. Career paths include local, national, and international nonprofits and charities, as well as sector-wide and associations, government, and corporate social responsibility. Next slide. These are some of the benefits that learners are eligible to receive once they enroll with us. Career advising and professional development support, industry connections, student community and networking opportunities, flexible learning with dedicated academic guidance, And part of the requirements for the professors in our program is active engagement and involvement in the industry, as well as their own professional development that's active in the last 5 years, full access to TMU resources and learner privileges, and access to financial support like OSAP and bursaries. I think there's an opportunity now for you to ask questions. So over to you, Mashura. Actually, no, sorry, not questions yet. Ben.
Welcome, Ben. Yeah, it's now my pleasure to introduce Ben Liatsky. Like I said earlier, he is the course instructor of one of the courses for the certificate at the Chang School, and program manager at the Counseling Foundation of Canada. Also a research consultant at Taylor Newbury Consulting with over 17 years of experience in this sector. Welcome, Ben.
Thanks, Mishra, and thanks, Junie, and thanks, Brooke. I'm not going to lie, I'm somebody that loves evaluation, could spend the rest of the time we have together talking about it, and we'd have no time for anything else. I've taught this course for the past 3 years, and I really do think evaluation is one of those things that is not only I've seen it become more important and talked about by all people connected to nonprofits, funders, people within nonprofits, even governments sometimes are referencing evaluation work that nonprofits are doing. But I think, it's one of those core tools that all nonprofit staff, so if you're working in a nonprofit, benefit from knowing. If you're a senior leader, a board of director, and you need to make decisions, evaluation helps you do that. If you're a fundraiser or a communications professional and you need to tell the story of the organization or you need to raise funding, evaluation helps get you the information to do that. If you're a frontline staff person working directly with community, evaluation helps you understand how you're doing, how to improve, how to better do the work that you're doing. And when I think of what good evaluation looks like, I often think about, how it helps to make decisions in the moment and answer key questions, but it also is sort of reinforces the core kind of muscles that nonprofits are doing, which is about supporting the communities they serve. It's about talking to people and getting feedback, and there's a skill and art to doing that. And when you do it well, you're building relationships with the people that you're aiming to serve. So at TMU, the CNI-INP 902 evaluation course, it's designed to give you an overview of the things you need to know to manage an evaluation process. It's not a technical course. You don't need a stats background. You don't need prior expertise. Instead, we use things like case studies. We use articles and activities to explore different ways in which some of the things that I talked about show up and what you need to know to consider evaluation, manage an evaluation, undertake some evaluation functions as someone that works at a nonprofit. So this can be, thinking about how to even approach designing an evaluation. It can be what questions are important to ask in an evaluation process. What are some ethical questions you need to consider before you start collecting data? So it's more of a holistic look at evaluation rather than, okay, this is the methodology we're going to use for this statistical model. That's not this course. So it's designed to be accessible. It's designed to provoke discussion. One of the joys that I've had in teaching this course is the diversity of people that have been in the classroom. So we've had some people that have just come to take this course as sort of a skill development piece, and they've been senior leaders, executive directors, and they bring that perspective. I've also had people who are new to the sector, who have not yet worked in a nonprofit, but they have personal experience and have evaluation from a different perspective. I've shared this example in the past of how evaluate can show up in your daily life. You go to the grocery store and you think about something that you want to buy for lunch, and you look at the sandwiches and you look at the pizza, and you might consider price, you might consider quality, you might consider how it looks. These are all data points. This is all an evaluation exercise that you're undertaking. And so yes, nonprofit evaluation is a little bit more complex, but everybody brings experience with evaluation to this classroom. And I think there's a lot of richness of diversity that I've seen in this class. So I think you've heard already, there's a lot of diversity in what the nonprofit sector looks like. There's a lot of different ways to enter into the nonprofit sector. I'm a big believer that evaluation is is such a critical thing to know in the evaluation world. There's a lot of pressure on nonprofits to be able to say, yes, we're making a difference, and evaluation is an increasingly important tool for that. So I'm happy to answer any questions about the evaluation world, and thank you for tolerating my little spiel about evaluation.
That was an amazing spiel, Ben. So thank you for sharing that. And it's always good to hear from someone with such great experience and insights from the sector. So that ends the presentation portion of today's session. We'll now open the floor to everyone for Q&A. Please go ahead and enter your questions in by typing them into the question box of the control panel, and we'll answer them one by one. Okay, so first question that's in today is, are students given opportunities to practice grant proposals or fundraising plans? I don't know who wants to start with that. Maybe Brooke or Junie, you can go ahead.
Mhm. The nature of the program is very hands-on, practical skill building. Uh, we do know that we want to increase skills in fundraising and grant writing. So that'll be more in our updated um, iteration of the program, but definitely different skills are developed using very hands-on tools.
I can add that while in my course, you're not asked to write a grant proposal. My day job, I work for a grant making foundation. So we're often getting requests from organizations seeking funding. And as part of that, we often ask for um, examples of how you know that your program's working. So we ask for some evaluation detail. And in my course, one of the assignments is to develop an evaluation plan. And so oftentimes, if you're seeking to fundraise, being able to share some evaluation data is part of the fundraising process. So the grant writing piece is bigger than just evaluation, but it is a component that goes into grant writing.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that piece, Ben. And yeah, we're looking forward to the revised one where all of these skills will be added. Next question is, given how diverse Toronto is, does the program prepare students to work with different communities and populations?
We actually have a diversity course specifically to that in a nonprofit certificate program, and it was actually revised last year. So it is one of those courses that we recognized needed to be updated. Uh, so yes, we do.
Awesome. So there was another question I know regarding assignments and grading, which we have our academic and career advisor Dave on the call as well, who answered that. But I just wanted to share that with everybody that's on the call. The question was from Emmy. Thank you for your question. And it was, are there graded assignments in this course? I know some programs like Trent does not have graded assignments in this program. So yes, there are graded courses with graded assignments and testing because they are degree credit courses with conventional evaluation structure. Anything else to add to that, Junie or Brooke? Is that good to go? Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, next question is from Melissa Davis. Thank you for your question, Melissa. I'm very interested in the government relations piece as we are currently founded by municipal and some provincial. I believe we are headed towards all provincial and want to have the skills to continue the discussion. So interested in, uh, is there any government relations piece in the course? Yeah.
I see Brooke nodding. Did you want to take this one?
Yeah, for
Okay,
sure.
Brooke.
Similar, you guys are coming up with all great things, and it just shows how aligned you all are with the certificate and know the industry. But we do have a course specifically designed. It's CINP 911, Advocacy and Government Relations and Nonprofits that cover exactly that. how to navigate those relationships with different levels of government as a nonprofit organization.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, next question is, are there opportunities to connect with local nonprofits through guest speakers or partnerships or any, Toronto leaders?
It definitely is an opportunity that different instructors make available in their courses. And as I flagged a little earlier, that all of our profs are industry professionals who are actively working and can speak to their experience, their very current experience. So, in some ways, they are a networking source. And because of who we attract in the program, it is also a networking opportunity for the students to connect with others like themselves who are also working in the field.
Okay, great. Next question is, what practical skills will students gain that are directly applicable to nonprofit work? Example, fundraising, program management, community outreach. So yeah, maybe all of you can chime in a little bit on this one, because I know it's a big question. Who wants to start?
Uh, Give me the question again. Sorry, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's what practical skills will students gain that are directly applicable to nonprofit work? Example, fundraising, program management, community outreach.
I'm happy to kick it off from my perspective. So oftentimes, a lot of programs and projects are funded by the government, by private foundations, and as part of those funding requests, um, nonprofits are required to evaluate the work. So in the practical skills, um, yeah, in my course, there's some specific tools that you'll learn how to use. So a couple are called, one is called theory of change, and there's a logic model. Um, these are examples of practical tools that can help visualize the work that nonprofits do in terms of the programs and how they run and how evidence is gathered. One of the assignments is to develop an evaluation plan, which, as I mentioned, can be included as part of a fundraising package to secure additional funding. And then, there's all sorts of other ways that evaluation shows up across different job roles in nonprofits. So if you're a communications professional, how you present data is an important thing to think about. Sometimes evaluation can be a long report, but it can also be an infographic, it can be a video, it can be all sorts of different things. And so we walk through what some of those options are. We don't necessarily expect that you're going to be experts in how to do all those things, but it's important to know from a practical skill perspective how to communicate evaluation information so that your audience will absorb the information that you want them to absorb. And I could give you so many more examples, but those are just a few. And I know Junie and Brooke might have some others, so I'll pause there.
Thanks, Ben. It might be helpful to hear what all of our courses are in the program, and then I can speak or we can speak a little bit more to skills. So one of our courses, 900, is Understanding the Nonprofit Sector. 901, Effective Nonprofit Organizations. 902, which Ben has been speaking about, actually, Effective Nonprofit Organizations, evaluation in nonprofits. 910, strategic planning in nonprofits. 911, as Brooke mentioned, our advocacy and government relations. 912, our marketing in nonprofits. 913, leadership in nonprofits. 914, diversity in nonprofits. 915, financial management. 916, nonprofits on the global stage, and 920, critical issues in nonprofits. All of our programs are designed to develop critical skills, particularly around critical analysis. So we use a lot of case examples and tools that are used in that particular areas focus. So different plans. So as an example for the strategic planning course, actually working on a strategic plan. In each of these courses, there are skills that are relevant. So again, I'll give you an example of strategic planning. We would do uh, skill development on, I think you asked around outreach. So we may not call it outreach, more like engagement, stakeholder relations. And fundraising is one of those areas that we've identified that we need to increase in the skill building in the program. And we're looking at where we can incorporate it. So it might be a good match in our financial management course or our marketing.
One thing that might be good to highlight as well as the really sector-specific skills that Junie and Ben mentioned, that we want you to come away with some really practical skills as well that you can apply in any sector you work at, but we really were intentional to incorporate in the program. So things like writing and communication, presentations, competencies, Junie mentioned already, but critical analysis and just analytical thinking in general, project management, coordination, as well as working in groups, which is something that I think is very important in the nonprofit sector, as well as just a kind of general knowledge about the sector itself of how organizations work, is built in throughout all of our courses.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, those are some really important skills, right? Not just in this sector, but in others as well. So it's good to know that, those are some of the skills that you'll be coming away with. So we've got a couple of questions regarding this. I'll combine them together. It's what type of volunteer roles would you recommend for students who want to develop leadership skills in the nonprofit sector? And then sort of maybe connecting that with what type of roles do graduates of programs like this typically move into. So if you all could touch on that a little bit.
We actually have a leadership course in the program, 913, and it's one of the courses I teach. Leadership is one of the most studied things and an area that we're still learning. What exactly does leadership mean? But what I hope we get from the course is that leadership is more than an actual position. There are opportunities for us to lead in so many aspects of our daily lives and the work that we are involved in. And even followers are still leaders. So that expanded thinking of how do you use your leadership in your day to day. In terms of the question around volunteer opportunities, I'm a big believer in the the learning that you get from being on a board or any kind of role that offers you advocacy and contributing to the betterment of the organization as a volunteer um, possibility. And I think there was another aspect of that. Where do people end up after they are in the program? We don't have a mechanism or a formal mechanism to keep in touch with our former students, but every now and again we do hear from individuals and their testimony of where they have gone in their careers and how this program was very instrumental in either helping them move into more formal leadership roles or uh, take the next step in their leadership journey. So they might be a manager and move into another level of leadership. And people have also moved from the other sectors, so the for profit or the public sector, and have moved into the nonprofit sector as a choice and comfort and confidence that they gained through the program.
One really interesting story that came up while we were doing the review of the program, and one of the industry experts that we consulted is a graduate from our program. So it was great to hear from her and her story. She actually started out in the sector. She knew she wanted to get into something around fundraising, and she started as a volunteer, I think, with the Red Cross or an organization similar to that. Um, and really developed an interest in the fundraising aspect of it. So she was torn kind of between, okay, do I want to commit to fundraising or do I want a broader kind of understanding of the sector? And she ended up taking our certificate, the Nonprofit and Voluntary Management Certificate, just to get a really good understanding of the opportunities that she could pursue. The certificate offers a lot of areas for specialization and learning about the different skills. And she actually went into donor relations at the Women's Hospital Foundation. And she mentioned to us specifically that she thinks that she was able to excel in the industry. So she went from kind of an officer level all the way to the director in quite a quick period of time um, because of the certificate and all of the information that she learned. And a lot of, because it is such a well-rounded and interdisciplinary industry, the more information you know, you can move around a lot faster because of how many hats you have to wear in this industry. And I think that just shows kind of that volunteer to being a working professional in the industry pipeline really, really well.
Love that. Thank you so much for sharing that, Brooke. Okay, next question. Moving on, we've got a few more that have come in, and this is also surrounding leadership roles. It's how much does the program focus on supervising staff, managing teams, and operational leadership? So I know there is, we talked about that there is that course that is on leadership, but is there anything specific to supervising staff, managing teams, and operational leadership in there?
I think the goal of the leadership aspect of the certificate is more on how do we strategically um, position leadership in the work that we do in the sector. The leadership course does do a little bit in distinguishing between management and leadership, and where supervision is a little bit more tied to the operational side of leadership slash managing. So we do cover it in that way in terms of, what's the difference and also why both skills are needed in a manager role.
Thank you, Junie. Okay, next question is looking at the sector today, what opportunities or areas of growth do you see emerging in the nonprofit space over the next few years?
Brooke, I'm going to ask if this one could be something we tap into from what we learned through our uh, certification review and our PAC members, maybe.
Yeah, that's a great idea, Junie. I'm trying to think back to some of the main takeaways that we got from that. One big shift that we were seeing is the importance of alternative fundraising models, just because of how the funding landscape is changing a little bit. And that's something that we've incorporated into our program. There was also a big theme that came about of digital transformation in nonprofits because they are such a resource kind of efficient, or they have to be such a resource efficient organization. How can we leverage tools such as artificial intelligence to really help with that efficiency. So that is something that was a big topic that came up a lot is how can we run our organizations as efficiently and effectively as possible using these tools available to us. So digital transformation is something that we've are going to incorporate wherever it's relevant in throughout all of our courses. I'm trying to think about what else kind of came up. I think those were the two biggest shifts that we heard in the industry itself.
No, that's really
Thanks,
great
thanks,
to
Brooke. I
hear.
think there was one more, and that was just around the use of data and how she's like, yeah, yes, and how very important telling the story of the work, telling the story of the impact is to the nonprofit sector, and how do we, use data through evaluation to to help us with that storytelling.
Love it. Those are really three great themes. Okay, so I know we're almost coming to time, but we've got two more questions. The next one is for Ben. What do you personally find most rewarding about working in the sector?
Oh, yeah. I think I've been working in the sector for 17 years in different roles. I've worked as a fundraiser, I've worked in communications, I've worked in volunteer management, done program management, done evaluation. It is a sector where you get to wear lots of hats. So one of the rewarding things is on a personal level, as I think about my own career journey, I've gotten to do a lot of different things. So if you're someone that really likes that ability to try different things, who's got a lot of curiosity about how um, different aspects of organizations work, everything from the nitty-gritty admin stuff up to big picture strategy design stuff, there's a good chance you'll get to have your hands in different roles in the nonprofit sector. So I find that very rewarding on a personal level. The other part is just I'm constantly amazed at how many really smart and passionate people I've met over the years. It's really a sector that everyone, if you want a good career story, ask people how they ended up in the sector, and everyone's got a different story to tell. And oftentimes, it's inspiring to hear people talk about why it is that the work that they do, whether it's in communications or accounting or any of the roles that exist in all kinds of organizations, not just nonprofits. The reason why they chose the nonprofit is because they have this particular passion as well as those technical and professional expertise that they bring to the role. So I find that really rewarding just to meet all these super smart people in a very diverse and an expansive sector that touches every part of Canada.
I love to hear that. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that, Ben. And then the last question is, would this certificate help someone who is trying to start a nonprofit organization? You can start with that.
I think I flagged a little earlier that the program is for uh, many people, but emerging leaders and emerging founders. And I have heard people who have been in that place in their journey use the program to help them better understand what it is that they need to set up their nonprofits. So we have seen it. Uh, we don't have the course that says this is how you start a nonprofit, but looking at different aspects that are needed in nonprofit leadership, the course, the certificate program does provide different areas that can assist.
Okay. Well, it looks like we don't have any more open questions so far, but I just wanted to say thank you to our presenters, and thank you to all of our attendees for the lovely conversation, the dialogue, great questions, great answers, lots of interesting perspectives and themes and great learnings. So once again, thank you for everyone attending today, taking the time out of your lunch hour. to join today's session. If you're interested in learning more about the nonprofit certificate, please visit our website at continuing.torontomu.ca. And if you have any other questions, please contact me directly at mash.chaudhary@torontomu.ca. All the information will be sent to you via a follow-up email with the recording of the session as well as a survey within the next 24 to 48 hours. And on behalf of the Chang School and our presenters, thank you for joining us. Have a great rest of the day. Bye, everyone.